So when you don't get this right, what you'll find is people are feeling a little bit confused. They're unable to follow your direction, and they may actually be actively sabotaging your projects. But when you do get this right, it's absolutely fantastic, because what you end up doing is empowering others, and you don't have to do everything yourself. Hi, I'm Martin Sharp, and today we're going to talk to you a little bit about frameworks. So what do I actually mean by a framework? So to me, a framework is a series of methods and processes and procedures and standards and policies, and that whole way that you work to be able to achieve an outcome, but you've actually documented it in a way that makes it repeatable. And this method of making it repeatable means that other people can take on board what you're actually doing, and you can leverage their expertise and their talents in a very structured way, where you can be able to deliver something and still be able to deliver it to high quality. Because at the end of the day, not everybody wants to do all the work themselves, and I'm pretty sure you don't want to be the one that's doing all the early mornings and all the late nights. I mean, ask me about how I know about that. Now, other people will say that, when you go with a framework, you have to get a standardized one. It has to be approved by the ISO community, and you've got to be able to take it from something that's been done before, and there's no point in coming up with something yourself. But the reality is, one framework does not fit everything. And in most cases, you have to tailor a framework to how it's going to work with your organization or in your industry to make sure it works in the right way. So when it comes down to actually a framework, the reality is you put a lot of yourself into it anyway. The other thing I find happens with people and frameworks is they tend to make them far too overcomplicated. I mean, how many times have you come across a framework which has maybe 10, 20, 30, 40 steps right at the top level, and it just becomes overwhelming to some people. In fact, some of the frameworks I've had to work with are over 2,000 pages long, and you're really kind of wondering, how is that meant to work for people? How are they supposed to be able to remember all these elements of it? So there was a lot of studies done back in the 60s and 70s around what the human mind can actually remember, and they came up with some figures saying somewhere between like 5 and 9 items is the normal amount of content that somebody's head can actually keep in mind. So the magic number 7 things that you can keep in your short-term memory, is something you've probably heard about, right? And here's the thing. If you can actually make your framework have no more than maybe 7 or 9 steps, certainly at the top level, then you'll find that people are able to understand it, because then by the time they've got to step number 7, they can still remember what was involved in step number 1. If you've got maybe 12 or 13 steps along, by the time they've got to step number 9, they've forgotten what the first step was, and you've defeated what you're trying to do in the first place, which just makes things simpler. I mean, that does not mean, though, you're going to get away with just doing things at a very high level. Your framework also has to have depth. It has to have the capability to be able to tell people exactly what it is that you need them to do, so they have enough to be able to do things to the same quality that you do, or probably even better. Now, this reminds me of a time back in 2007 when we had started doing a £1 billion hospital divestment. It was the biggest piece of work that our company ever done. And as you found me at 8 o'clock at night, still working on some of the due diligence process, trying to work out what we're going to do around the technology stack, how we're going to transition from where they are now to where they want to be. And this wasn't uncommon. You'd probably find me there at 8 o'clock in the morning and at 8 o'clock at night. In fact, you'd probably find me there at like 6 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night if you were daft enough to be there as well. Because at that point in time, I hadn't really understood the power of a good framework, and I hadn't really appreciated how you can create a framework that makes things happen. And it wasn't that other people didn't want to do it. I had members of my team asking me, how can we help you, Martin? How can we relieve some of this struggle? We want to be able to make sure we get the best thing for our client. We're really enthused in this project. And others were turning around saying, why can't you just tell us exactly what it is that you needed to do? Why can't you just take us through that process? And then the reality was, I was too busy trying to do to actually take myself out of it sometimes to create a framework. But I did. I spent that time to create what was the first version of what we called Stratomatic back in the time, which really worked on understanding the chain that was between what was the vision and the mission of the organisation, through how we built up all those objectives and all the goals and all the drivers, through to actually base requirements and how that evolved into something that actually worked to be in a deliverable hospital group. Now that was a great success for me, and I learned a lot of things off the back of it. And one of the key things was the power of the framework, to be able to put things into a way that can give somebody else the ability to be able to deliver, gives them the key steps that they need to do, and it empowers them to work to move forwards. So I'm going to challenge you. Are you going to analyse how you do your work and procedurize it so it can be repeatable? Are you going to spend the extra bit of time to empower others so you know that they can learn, they can develop, and they can help you in delivering things so you don't have to do it all yourself? Are you just going to be the one that does all the early mornings and all the late nights? This reminds me of a quote. You might want to write this down, and that is, the beauty of empowering others is that your power is not diminished. Bye for now. If you enjoyed this video, then please click the subscribe button for more hints, tips, sound bites and extras in order to be able to help you influence change, build consensus and achieve a greater success in your life, in your career and in your organisation. So click that subscribe button now.